What is up, App Nation? It is Steve P. Young, founder of appmasters.com, the place you go when you want action-packed content in the app business, because I talk to some phenomenal people so knowledgeable in the app space so that I and you can collectively learn together and we can grow our collective businesses together as well. I'm a big believer in community, and I'm super excited to have this guest on. I messaged him about 2 years ago to be like, please, Chuka, let me come. Let me interview you. And finally, we got to meet in person at the Adjust event and finally got him on. That's a key. You got to meet him in person. They can't say no to you in person. So I'm super excited to have him on. His name is Chuka Ikokwu. He is the head of analytics of one of my favorite board games, but also a mobile app called Exploding Kittens. And he's also the founder of Divercity. Really great mission. We're going to learn more about Divercity, but you can check it out, divercity.io. So without further ado, the long awaited Chuka, welcome on.
Thank you. I'm honored to be on here. It definitely has been a long time coming, and I apologize once again. I mean, I don't know how long we're going to have to keep going over this, but yes, it was my bad.
I'm never letting him go.
Not being as responsive.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the gaming side. I know that's what most people are here for, but you said one strategy that's really working for you is product analytics, and so talk to me about maybe your tech stack or how you guys think about analytics. And then I really want to obviously talk about monetization as well.
Absolutely. So analytics is my specialty. I've always loved numbers. Always loved games. I'm a gamer from day, as soon as I could walk. And I've always loved numbers. I've always loved revenue numbers. I've always loved data just in general. So it was quite a natural fit, and it allowed me to break into the gaming space pretty early, 2008 actually. I was one of the early employees at Riot Games here in LA before moving to the Bay Area, and I had the privilege of working on game economy and game balancing and the monetization scheme. Now, what I also realized is that you cannot see whether what you're doing is working well if you don't see the data for it, and not just see data, but see reliable and clean data. And more often than not, a lot of game teams go straight to the development. They build out the game design doc, and analytics is playing catch up, right? They've already started. They have it playable. The game's working, and analytics is playing catch up. And I studied economics in undergrad, so opportunity cost is a very real thing. And the issue with in my opinion, one of the biggest issues of mobile gaming is the opportunity cost. Like, if you don't do this, then this won't happen. People, okay, we have the IP, people can make purchases, we have ads, but there's a lot of money that's always being left on the table, right? And that's why it's called live operations, because you're operating in a live environment and results can happen in real time. So all that said, my strategy is always to get in as early as possible and look at the analytics and just your information, the information you're collecting, as the single biggest influencer of how profitable your game is going to be.
What I always feel about analytics, Chuka, is there's so much numbers. Do I try to measure everything? So are there some key things that, especially from a gaming perspective, that you always try to measure?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a mystery to your average, whether it's like a PM or a producer, or even you, a manager. But ARM is like the acronym that we always use: acquisition, retention, monetization. And retention and engagement live in the same world. So it's like RM, like acquisition, retention, engagement, monetization. And each of those, they're standard metrics, but there are some that are also unique to the application of the game itself. So of course, as far as acquisition goes, the thing you care about mostly is, do I know where my users are coming from, and do I know if they're coming profitably, right? Like, what my best sources are, so I can optimize towards that. So the LTV, or the return on ad spend, is the big thing we would always care about for UA. From a retention and engagement standpoint, obviously the retention metrics, day 1, day 3, day 7, 14, 30, the session length, are people actually coming to use your app? And if they're coming, are they coming for a fairly long period of time? Or are they just coming for 1 second and bouncing? You care about the session length and the number of sessions. And then also on the monetization side, of course, how many of them are starting to pay, or what is the value that they're bringing, whether it's an ad revenue and LTV, or ARPDAU, which is essentially your daily revenue. A long time ago, some people would calculate the average number of days a user comes to your game, like over the course of 30 days, and then multiply that by the average revenue per daily active user, and then that's like your back of the envelope LTV. So if you have a rough sense of how profitable each of your users is and how many users you have, then I think it can help you determine the value of your game overall. But remember, again, it's very live operations driven. So it's not just fire and forget, but it's a lot of iteration. Like, okay, let's try this and see if this works. And let's try that and see if that works.
And then from a tech stack perspective, are you using things like Adjust to try to figure all this stuff out?
Yes. So tools. There's hundreds of tools out there, of course, but for me, I've just made it simple. My mom always says that the devil is always better. So for acquisition, Adjust is the go-to. There's obviously Adjust is not the only play out there, but that is my player. It works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're also evolving a lot of their services. So that's the number one thing I look for. It's not just, oh, this is our tool and take it as you see it. It's more like, okay, this is our tool, but we're going to constantly improve and make life easy for you. So we use that for acquisition. For analytics, Snowflake is my go-to there, because they also allow you to store raw data, and then they give you the SQL querying interface to access that data as well. And then of course it has connectors, so it can connect to your visualization tool like Tableau, which is what I use. Tableau is my favorite. There are also other streaming SQL players out there like Materialize.io, Imply.io, and some that build the visualization in the data storage like Periscope, but or Looker even. But I keep it simple again. Snowflake gets you the raw data. You can store the raw data in Snowflake and then also query it and then send it to your visualization tool. And then for monetization is that's like the biggest, the trickiest area, because there are a lot of tools there that help you optimize your monetization, but it's still like, let's just say there's not like enough data out there, right? But there's a couple of folks like Game of Whales that are like serious in this space. There's another one I can't remember the name, which sucks because they did a demo for us recently, but I can send that to you when I check my inbox. But there's some tools where if you put the SDK in, they actually help you they help you optimize your monetization based on player behavior and reduce churn as well. Reduce churn increases monetization over time. So anything you can do to optimize your player engagement will usually help you with monetization.
Yeah, I've had Doron on from Game of Whales, and essentially what they allow you to do is run a ton of A/B tests. And he kind of mentioned this too. It's like, look, with monetization, we have no idea what's going to work, and so this platform, they've got a ton of great apps, allows you to sort of A/B test different things too. Chuka, I do want to talk about this. I interviewed Crossy Road creator Matthew Hall, and he talked about I was like, hey, how did you think about monetization early on? And he was just like, look, I cared about retention. That's all I care about. If people came back into the app, I knew that I would eventually figure out how to monetize them. Do you have a similar mindset as you start thinking through like new game launches and new game ideas through your vast game industry knowledge?
Yeah, so I 100% agree. If they stay, they will pay, right? I've monetized in games myself, but it was rarely as soon as I joined. In fact, the people who monetize like as soon as they join aren't the ones you want to count on. It's the ones who stay for a long time, because those are the ones who are going to sustain your revenue base. So the retention mechanics are very important, and thinking about, because I think it's tricky to think about, how are we going to monetize, how are we going to hook people and trick them into paying. But that's not, it will rarely be sustainable, right? And when I say sustainable, I'm talking about for years to come, not just like a fast follow or something that's just going to last for a few months and then the buzz is gone. But you want to do something that the monetization should not be a secondary, it shouldn't be an afterthought, but the retention should definitely be more important than the monetization, because the monetization is heavily dependent on the retention. So if you do something that itself will catch people and keep them, that's great. But do not forget about your monetization hooks, because you can have a great game, a lot of users, high retention, and no money, little to no money, right? I've seen that before, and that's usually because of the lack of, like I said, monetization not being like a strong thought from the get-go.
I do want to move on. I do want to talk about retention monetization here a little bit. You said you're a gamer, you love games. Are there different tactics that you've seen that like most gaming companies, not even most, but that maybe is the most commonly overlooked retention tactic from a gaming perspective?
The most commonly overlooked tactic from a retention standpoint. I would say, and I hate to say it, but with mobile, I would say lack of push notifications. I think of, I have like over 100 apps usually, and I cannot go to all of them every day or every other day even, or even every month. But if there's something that's interesting enough that comes up, then I will come back, right? And then when I come back, I see what else is new, if anything, or at least like I'm reminded to continue my experience. And that's where live operations comes in again. When I worked at WB, I was there for 3 years, and one of the things that we did to pull people back in was put new champions or new challenges into the game. So it's a very simple thing. Like every 2 weeks or so, release a new character, and when a new character comes, announce it, guys. The Scorpion, the Netherworld Scorpion challenge is up, right? Come claim your character, and then retention just get like a lot of users come back, and then engagement increases, monetization increases. So again, there's no with mobile gaming. If you want to have the most profitable title that you can, you don't want to ignore live operations. In a rare case, you can do that, like with a Flappy Bird, where you don't have to change anything about that game. People are just going to play it every day, and the buzz and the revenue and all that stuff. But that's an exception to the rule. I think for the most part, especially because of how saturated it is now, you want to fight to be relevant. It's like being a musician. You can be a great musician, but you can, just like that, you can become irrelevant. So, but you have to keep coming. You have to keep coming hard and reinventing yourself. So I think in the same way, one of the most underrated things is having a scalable or consistent plan. League of Legends has been doing this for years. I mean, almost like over a decade now, of releasing new characters or champions, and whether it's a reskin or whatever. I mean, those are the details, but the culture has made for a very loyal fan base, and I think in the same way, that's something that mobile can benefit from.
Have you seen certain types of ways to ask? I know with games, it might be a little bit more difficult, but with like subscription-based apps, it's like a meditation app. When do you like to meditate? Okay, I like to meditate 8 a.m. Can we send you a push notification? That's when they ask. And it's always the right way to ask, because I normally turn off all push notifications. But what's the right way to ask for push notifications for games?
That's a good question. I think that the one thing that we see as a best practice now is what you just said, like asking, rather than just like sending the native prompt for someone to allow. Very crisply explain why you want to send them a notification, right? Like, can we let you know about your rewards, for instance? Can we let you know when it's time to unlock your chest, or when you can get the new Exploding Kittens collector's item cards or whatnot? If you appeal to something that you suspect a user might value, then there are more than, I don't know, maybe your chances increase by 50% that they will allow the notification. So that again comes down to thinking about retention. Like what do you expect in all your creativity will get someone to come back? Whatever that thing is going to be your biggest weapon in order to get them to even allow you to try to get them to come back with push notifications.
Okay, Chuka, I want to move on to the monetization side. So what's a commonly overlooked monetization strategy that you feel like, hey, people should be doing this?
Sure. So I studied what they call irrational behavioral concepts, or IBC. It's like the economic term of why humans are just irrational by nature. And it's just like, it's psychology, but the psychology affects the world around us, right? Even this Zoom platform that we're on does it, right? So I think in the same way, we can do something similar with monetization. And in monetization, communicating value, for instance, is something that most people do it now, I see, but a lot of apps still don't do it. Like let's say you're offering like 100 coins, right? 100 coins for $5. You can offer 20 more coins and say 20% more, right? And if you just say 20% more, you give the impression someone's getting a good deal. It probably will not break the economy at all, but it will increase the conversion on that bundle. So little things like that, and I think it's that's like the theory of value perception. There's also the theory of anchoring too, right? Anchoring is where you have like $1,000 bundle and people see it and like, oh no, I could never buy that, but I'll buy the $100 one instead. So just even though it's like a psychological trick, I see it all the time where people see options and they just know it may be a good value, but it's too much for them, but it has automatically skewed them from the cheapest, because people are cheap. People like free by nature. So skew them from that to just a little higher. So your goal, I mean, as you know, I think like 95% of people still aren't paying for the most part on mobile games. So your goal is always really to get the non-payers to think like payers and not like cheapos. And in so doing, you just have to employ some of these value creation methodologies that have been working for many, many decades.
I love that you said value perception, because I never thought of a fancy term, but it's so simple, right? But we did this A/B test when I was at a different startup where essentially we said it's $25 for a month, $179 for a year, same thing, right? You get a little bit off, and then $199 for all this a year for all this. And what happened was when we're just showing the monthly and yearly, it was like a 50-50 split. Now, obviously we want people on the year, right? So I made up a product and I just said, you know what? I'm going to make this yearly plan a little bit cheaper and then just give the basics, right? And then because the value then becomes clear that, oh, just for $20 more, I get all these other things, I'm going to sign up for that. And that conversion, like tripled conversions, and it became an 80-20 split where 80% of the people were actually signing up for the yearly. So it has that huge impact with the value. And I'm so glad you said that. I know that some of these game developers, they do these like starter packs and they use like huge promotion on these starter packs. Now, what's your take on it? Because I've seen nice revenue numbers from these starter packs, but at the same time, does it hurt your LTV?
So I'm still in the camp where I recommend starter packs because I think it's a good starting point for people to monetize or to at least start to think about value in your application. But I mean, I always say that if all fails, you can always A/B test to prove out your theory. So on one hand, okay, this cohort I'm offering the starter pack to. On the other hand, I'm not offering the starter pack to this other cohort. Like whether it's 10% of your audience, so 50% of 10%, sorry, 50% 10, no starter. Which one does better? I will bet that the one with the starter pack would do better, but again, it depends on it's case based, right? Because if you're offering value, if a lot of the value you're offering comes later in the user experience, then a starter pack may not work as well because it's like, wait, why did I buy this thing and I haven't had to use it really for the most part? So it has to flow with your title. Like you have to be able to see what you could start to spend your soft currency on earlier on in the experience if a starter pack was going to make that much of a difference.